My name is Dylan. I am a second year graduate student in psychology here at UL. Dr. Brown is my advisor, and like her, I do research on bystander intervention and sexual violence. So she invited me to give a mini lecture on prosocial behavior. Um, in this mini lecture, I'm more or less going to go over different theories that researchers have applied when studying bystander intervention to prevent sexual violence. These models and theories include the situational model of bystander intervention, the theory of planned behavior, the social norms theory, the ecological model of bystander intervention, and the arousal cost reward model. As Dr. Brown covered in her PowerPoint, Watney and Darley suggested that bystanders must go through 5 steps prior to intervening, including noticing the event, determining if the event requires intervention, taking responsibility to intervene, deciding how to intervene, and then finally intervening. In addition, they also discovered the bystander effect. The bystander effect suggests that when bystanders witness a potential emergency, the more bystanders present, the less likely any bystander is to intervene. Researchers have also applied this model to bystander intervention to prevent sexual violence. Specifically, researchers have hypothesized that there were barriers that bystanders must overcome at each step of the intervention process. Some of these barriers are listed here. So in table 1, you see that all of the steps from Lotney and Darley's model are all the way to the left. And then here are potential barriers that are at each step of the intervention process. So, for example, failure to notice the event. If you are at a bar and someone is being sexually harassed about 10 feet away from you, but you're having a conversation with your friend, you might be focusing on the conversation with your friend and therefore fail to notice that someone is being sexually harassed. An example of failure to identify a situation as high risk could be if someone is at a party where the norm might be people go to parties to hook up with others. If they see a guy taking a girl upstairs, they might not identify that as a potentially high risk situation that could lead to sexual assault because they think it's normal for college people to hook up at parties. So, in the correlational study by Byrne, they had participants complete 2 questionnaires, one regarding barriers to bystander intervention and one regarding intention to intervene as a bystander. Their results indicated that the proposed barriers that Byrne hypothesized right here were all negatively correlated with their respective steps from the situational model of bystander intervention. Next, we have the theory of planned behavior, as you guys previously covered. The theory of planned behavior suggests that attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control together can predict intention, and then intention can in turn predict behavior. So, when applying this model to bystander intervention, attitudes have been measured as the degree to which a person believes that specific bystander intervention behaviors are helpful or unhelpful. Subjective norms have been measured as the degree to which someone believes that important others, like your friends and family, would approve of the specific bystander intervention behaviors. And perceived behavioral control can be seen as can be measured as the perceived ease or difficulty to perform a specific behavior. Intentions have been measured as how likely someone is to engage in specific bystander intervention behaviors in the future. So by applying this theory to the context of sexual assault, researchers have found that people who engage in bystander intervention had higher perceived behavioral control and more positive attitudes and subjective norms towards bystander intervention than people who do not engage in bystander behaviors. Continuing on, there's also the social norms theory, which posits that personal perceptions of other people's attitudes and behaviors can influence an individual's behavior. Some bystander intervention programs aimed at preventing sexual violence have adopted the social norms approach by targeting people's misperceptions of social norms and revealing the true normative behavior. So an example of this would be the Men's Project. If one person is aware that other people see sexually aggressive behaviors as problematic, they may be more likely to intervene when they witness sexually aggressive behaviors. So, when evaluating the Men's Project, researchers have found that the specific bystander intervention program can actually improve people's perceptions of social norms about bystander intervention. The way they found this was prior to the intervention, they asked people about their perceptions of what their peers' willingness is to intervene, and then after the program, they found that perceptions of their peers' willingness had increased. So then we have the ecological model of bystander intervention. Many theories and models of bystander intervention focus on the individual, and Victoria Banyard suggests that changing behaviors related to bystander intervention in the context of sexual violence could benefit from considering factors outside of the individual. So Banyard's ecological model is based off of Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory and suggests that programs should focus on things outside of the individual, like their microsystems, which include their family and their peers, their exosystems, which includes their community, and macrosystems, which would include wider society. So targeting these rather than the individual and changing community perceptions about sexual violence could assist in increasing bystander behaviors. Finally, we have the arousal cost reward model. So the arousal cost reward model suggests that emotional and motivational factors and situational factors play an important role in helping behaviors. According to the arousal cost reward model, witnessing another person in need causes arousal, and arousal in turn leads to increased helping. So, factors that can increase arousal include higher levels of danger faced by the victim and feelings of empathy toward the victim. However, bystanders are also sensitive to the cost associated with helping. So, previous researchers have found that when the costs of helping are high, helping behavior decreases. Costs of helping can include time, effort, and potential danger to the bystander. So, if arousal is high and cost is high, people will see and notice the event, but they might not be likely to help. Whereas if arousal is high and the costs are low, people would be more likely to help. So helping will be most likely when arousal is high and costs are low, and helping will be least likely when arousal is low and costs are high. And here are references if you guys are more interested in continuing reading about these things. If you guys have any questions, you can email me. My email was on the first slide at the beginning of the video, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.